Right at 10:40 on Dave.
Welcome back. Well, they're all in the shops and the libraries now, waiting to be devoured. Many have been devoured. May has arrived, and with it this year's Richard and Judy's summer read. 8 great novels that we think are perfect for the plane, or the pool, or the beach, and here it is. This is number 1. Past Imperfect by Julian Fellowes. It's set in the dying days of the debutante, late 1960s London, and the present day as well. And Past Imperfect it's a very English story. Joanna and Nathaniel Parker are here with their considered opinions, but first it's down to Andalusia, and actress Sophie Winkleman, who ought to know a little bit about toffs, because of course she starred in ITV's royal drama, The Palace.
Hello, I am on holiday in southern Spain, and Richard and Judy have given me Past Imperfect by Julian Fellowes to read. Our story begins with the unnamed narrator hearing from an old friend, well, ex-friend, Damien Baxter. The two men had had a dramatic falling out, and it's been 40 years since they spoke. Damien is now enormously rich and lives alone, unless you count the housemaid, butler, chauffeur and cook. Damien is terminally ill and has no heir to inherit his £500 million fortune. Though some years ago he received an anonymous letter stating that he fathered a child in his early 20s. He enlists our narrator's help to seek out the identity of this unknown author. Our narrator reluctantly agrees to help Damien. His search takes us back to 1968 and the high society world of the debutante season, where young women of a particular social standing were introduced to eligible young bachelors at parties. They set off to find the ghosts from both their pasts. I want to read you this paragraph because I think it sums up the more serious, slightly bleaker aspect of the book, which is wonderful. It's the father speaking to our narrator. You've been made to go back into your own past and to compare it with your present. You've been forced to remember what you wanted from life at 19, 40 years ago, before you knew what life was. Indeed, you must face what all you wanted from life. Those silly, over-made-up girls and the vain, self-important young men you ran around with then. Now, thanks to Damien, you must bear witness to what happened to them, to what happened to you. Eventually, in old age, almost everyone with any brains must come to terms with the disappointment of life. This tale of passion and class shows us the sad and disappointing lives of our central characters unfold, whose glittering youths gave way to a rather greyer reality of later life. Julian Fellowes is a masterful storyteller whose love of language leaps off the page in every word, clause and sentence. Past Imperfect is, in fact, a perfect summer read.
I agree. It had me from hello, I have to say, from the very first page.
It's a good yarn.
Pardon?
It's a good yarn.
It's a great yarn.
Really
ladies first. Joanna, what did you make?
I absolutely jumped in and couldn't put it down. I had to metre it out so that I would have a chapter at night time, not finish it too soon. I thought it was also extraordinarily funny. He is a very, very funny writer.
He writes like he talks, doesn't he?
He writes like
couldn't you hear
you could hear
all the way through? You could absolutely hear Julian the whole time.
And he, as we know, is marvellously snobbish, but he's very accurate, quite sharp, and quite often that flips back onto himself. He's not ashamed to turn the hard spotlight back on here. So I found it absolutely spellbinding.
One of the reasons I found it so spellbinding, I think, is that I was at university in the late 60s as well, and we had all the sort of the swinging 60s and the sort of, you know, the rock and roll and all the rest of it, but this kind of very, very posh end of it, the debutantes, the social standing, the incredible awareness of where everybody was in the pecking order was not there at all.
And it wasn't there. Was it in yours? In your life? No, you're much younger than us.
Not really, but I did have. I caught glimpses of it because of parents' friends, and I found myself going to parties, just a couple, when I was invited because of my parents. Neither of whom are blue blood, but they were, they had friends who were, and so suddenly I was invited to be somebody's date at so-and-so, and you'd be waited on hand and foot, and you just thought, this is a different world, different world. And what I think Julie does so cleverly in here, actually, is tell you about that world, bring you halfway to modern life, and then today. And he tells you, and he bridges the gap, not just telling you how the world has changed and how the world has got a bit older, and we now see the imperfections of the past, but how he's changed.
I think it's also, don't you think it's interesting the way he says that he looks at his class, if you like, because it's all about class. He looks at his class and he follows them up now in this day and age and feels very sad for a lot of them, because a lot of what he calls the kindness has disappeared, and it's a much less gentle society than it was. But what I remember happening, and this was not my generation, it was the generation before, was the first grammar school and working class people going to university. And actually, it's almost like...
Well, that's what this book's about, isn't it?
The inverse of that.
Our character who knows he's impregnated someone back then, although the letter doesn't actually say that, it implies that, and he infers that meaning from it. But it's really about his impact on that elevated world. He's an ordinary boy, really, you know, from the sticks. He comes in.
I'd have liked to have known a bit more
well,
about
no,
him.
we quite loved him.
And it's what happens when those two worlds collide. They break each other.
Class. Anyway,
no, he's not.
The people he's talking about. I mean, the people he is equally getting into it. Not as much as Damien, but he equally has to get into it. So
but they break each other.
He's reflecting it. That's right. And
those two, the intersection of those two worlds.
Positive and negative going to
bang. Yeah. There's that terrible scene in Portugal towards the end, you know, when it all goes horribly wrong.
Those last 50 pages, I'm sorry,
those
you read
worlds,
them like that.
Those worlds weren't meant to mix, were they? Yeah. They weren't meant to intermingle.
No.
That's why the upper classes had remained separate for so long, and when the two did come to meet, bang, they kind of cancelled each other out.
And the things that could betray you were the smallest things: the wrong use of a word,
yes,
the wrong kind of clothes, the kind of infinite snobbery,
yes,
where those ice eyes would just go, no, you're no good. Do you know what I mean? Horrifying.
But an interesting tolerance too in that last amazing scene in Portugal, where if only he'd then stopped, and the narrator says, when he'd stopped, we could have said, oh, you've had too much to drink, dear boy, sit down.
Yes.
And everything would have been fine, you know, it would have been brushed under the carpet, as it has been for centuries brushed under the carpet.
But he said the unsayable.
You know,
he said the unsayable.
But actually, it wasn't, and that was it.
The men came out of it actually quite badly. And I think he's got quite a sharp eye for men. Can I just read you this, because it just makes me laugh. This is at some fancy dress party, and the Grand Duke, who cut a melancholy figure, he was a slight and pasty-looking creature anyway, especially when placed at the side of his massive spouse. And in truth, I don't believe I ever heard him say an interesting sentence. He wore his elaborate costume, which I took to be that of the Duke of Richmond, with an air of surprise, as if he'd been put into it while under sedation. It's very funny. And the page, it's barbed with those funny little...
I love that character, Philip. And as a character, I mean, he's a horrible person.
Yes.
But because he said one bit when he meets the narrator, he says, Lucy tells me you're a writer now. What have you written that I might have read? Now, it doesn't happen to you because you are so recognisable to everyone. But I had something the other day say to me, the other day, literally 2 days ago, said, you're an actor, aren't you? Yes, you did. Gosh, you've done 2 things that were quite good, haven't you? Let me think. He said, no, I mean 2 things that, you know, you had reasonable sized parts. What were they?
Well, we all enjoyed it.
Yes, very much indeed. Thanks very much indeed. And each week we'll be asking a group of friends who live in a British holiday resort to give us their review. So we're starting down in Poole on Dorset's sunny south coast.